Cyber Threat Brief for May 29, 2026. GOG's zero-day enables remote code execution on 2,400-plus internet-exposed servers. Daemon Tools supply chain attack added to CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, KEV, known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, with May 30 deadline. Microsoft patches multiple zero days under active exploitation after public disclosure dispute. GitHub and NX console supply chain intrusions target developer CI/CD pipelines. Here's the full breakdown of today's top security stories. Daily Security Brief, May 29, 2026. Next section, Critical Alerts. GOG's zero-day allows remote code execution and unpatched critical severity argument injection, flaw in the GOG's self-hosted Git service. Versions 0.14.2 and 0.15.0 plus dev. Allows authenticated attackers to gain remote code execution via malicious branch names during rebase merge operations. The vulnerability affects all default configured GOG servers because registration is enabled by default with no repository creation limits. Attackers can create an account, enable rebase merging in repository settings, and exploit a exec flag injection in the merge. Code path to execute arbitrary code as the GOG server process user. This grants access to all repositories including private repos, credentials, password hashes, API, tokens, SSH keys, 2FA secrets, and enables lateral movement. Shadowserver tracks over 2,400 GOG servers exposed online, primarily in Asia and Europe. The maintainers acknowledged the report on March 28, but have not released a patch or provided a status update despite the researcher reporting the flaw on March 17. Action: if running GOGs, disable public registration, set disable registration equals true, restrict repository creation, set MAX creation limit to a specific number, isolate servers from internet exposure, and monitor for suspicious rebase operations. This is similar to CVE 2024-39932, but affects a different unpatched code path. Previous GOG's remote code execution, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, KEV, known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, due February 2, was exploited in zero-day attacks affecting hundreds of servers, and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Sources: Bleeping Computer. Daemon Tools supply chain attack, CVE 2026-8398. CISA added the Daemon Tools supply chain compromise to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog with a May 30, 2026 remediation deadline for federal agencies. Attackers gained unauthorized access to AVB DiskSoft's build or distribution infrastructure and Trojanized 3 binaries: DT Helper, EXE, DiskSoft Bus Service Lite, EXE, and DT Shell HLP, EXE. Malicious files were digitally signed with the legitimate AVB DiskSoft code signing certificate, allowing silent distribution through trusted update channels. The vulnerability has CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, V4 score of 9. 3 and EPSS, the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, of 0. 330, 97th percentile, indicating high likelihood of exploitation. Action: uninstall Daemon Tools immediately or verify binaries are not from the compromised versions. Check for these 3 file names in your environment. Review code signing certificate validation processes. FSEB agencies must apply fixes by May 30, 2026. Source: The Hacker News. Multiple Windows zero days under active exploitation, CVE 2026-33825, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Microsoft confirmed active exploitation of 3 zero-day vulnerabilities: Bluehammer/CVE 2026-33825, Red Sun/ and Undefend/ disclosed publicly by researcher Chaotic Eclipse without prior coordination. Bluehammer has CIS a KEV deadline of May 6, while Red Sun and Undefend have June 3 deadlines. The researcher disclosed 6 0 days total, including Yellow Key/, Green Plasma, and Mini Plasma, after alleging Microsoft deleted their bug reporting account, failed to communicate during the disclosure process, and humiliated them publicly. The researcher threatened to release additional exploits on July 14, 2026 that will make sure your bones are shattered. Microsoft's security teams worked around the clock to develop updates and urged researchers to follow coordinated vulnerability disclosure rather than releasing proof-of-concept code that threat actors can weaponize. GitHub took down the researcher's account, leading them to repost exploit code on GitLab before that account was also blocked, and 3 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: apply Microsoft's patches for CVE 2026-33825, due May 6, due June 3, and due June 3 immediately. Monitor for indicators of compromise related to these vulnerabilities. FSEB agencies under CIS a KEV order. Prepare for potential additional zero-day disclosures on July 14 and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Sources: The Hacker News, The Register. GitHub and NX Console supply chain intrusions. CVE 2026-48027. CIS is responding to multiple developer ecosystem supply chain intrusions, including a malicious NX Console Visual Studio Code extension, version 18.95.0, that compromised a GitHub employee's device and led to unauthorized access and exfiltration of internal GitHub repositories. The malicious extension was distributed through VS Code's automatic update mechanism, meaning systems with NX Console previously installed received the malicious build without manual action. CVE 2026-48027 has been added to CIS a KEV, ransomware linked, with June 10 remediation deadline and EPSS of 0. 268, 96th percentile. A separate Megalodon campaign injected malicious GitHub action workflows to harvest CI/CD secrets, cloud credentials, and tokens from public repositories. Action: remove NX Console version 18.95.0 immediately. Rotate all CI/CD secrets including API keys, cloud provider credentials, Oz, GCP, Azure, SSH keys, Docker/npm/PyPI tokens, and GitHub/GitLab/Bitbucket tokens. Conduct forensics review of CI/CD logs, cloud audit trails, and affected developer machines. Monitor workflow files for unauthorized commits from automated accounts, BuildBot, AutoSci, SciBot, PipelineBot, especially after May 18, 2026. Wait at least 3 hours before pulling new packages. Pin software to specific trusted versions. Source: CISA. 40 client EMS vulnerability exploited for infostealer deployment. CVE 2026-35616. A critical 40 client endpoint management server vulnerability. CVE 2026-35616. CVSS 9.1. CIS a KEV due April 9. Hatched in April, continues to be exploited in fresh attacks deploying EKZ infostealer malware. The flaw allows unauthenticated remote code execution via crafted requests. Threat actors used 40 clients' own VPN scripting workflows to push malicious PowerShell commands to managed endpoints disguised as a fake Fortinet endpoint patch. Because 40 client EMS functions as central management for all 40 client devices, access to the appliance enabled code execution on every managed endpoint. Infostealer targets Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and other Chromium/Gecko browsers for credential, cookie, and autofill data exfiltration over HTTP. EPSS score of 0. 432, 98th percentile, indicates very high exploitation likelihood. Action: apply Fortinet's patches for CVE 2026-35616 immediately if not already done. Review 40 client EMS access logs for unauthorized VPN script deployments or PowerShell executions. Check managed endpoints for signs of EKZ infostealer, browser credential exports to output log files, HTTP exfiltration traffic. This is a CIS a KEV with April 9 deadline already passed. Source: Security Week. Next section: ransomware and extortion. The Gentleman ransomware. Self-propagating Go encryptor Microsoft Threat Intelligence published detailed analysis of the Gentleman ransomware as a service, RAS, a financially motivated threat tracked as Storm 2697. The ransomware emerged mid-2025 as a closed group, began offering RAS to affiliates in September 2025, and recently established an official partnership with breach forums to recruit penetration testers and initial access brokers. Written in Go and obfuscated with Garble, the Gentleman uses per-file ephemeral curve 25,519 keys with XChaCha 20 stream cipher and combines strong encryption with aggressive self-propagation using simultaneous lateral movement methods. The malware accepts command line arguments for encryption scope, speed, lateral movement, and post-encryption behaviors, with full mode spawning 2 child processes, system for local volumes under system privileges, shares for network shares. Speed flags fast, superfast, ultrafast control how much of large files is encrypted, default 9% per chunk for files over 1 megabytes. The operators use double extortion tactics, encrypting data while exfiltrating sensitive information. Microsoft observed impacts across education, transportation, healthcare, and financial industries in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. Action: block the Gentleman ransomware indicators at network edge. Monitor for Go-compiled executables with garble obfuscation. Detect lateral movement patterns involving simultaneous system privilege scheduled tasks and network share access. Watch for processes with flags like full system shares. Review Microsoft's hunting queries and detections in their published blog post. Source: Microsoft Security Blog. Next section, Business and Infrastructure Threats. 1,350 command and control servers across Middle East infrastructure hunt. EO identified over 1,350 command and control servers across 98 Middle East infrastructure providers between February 1 and May 1, 2026. C2 infrastructure represents 96.8% of malicious activity, far exceeding phishing infrastructure, 0.5%, and publicly reported IOCs, 0.5%, while malicious open directories account for 2.2%. Saudi Arabia's STC, Saudi Telecom Company, hosts 981 C2 servers, representing 72.4% of all detected C2 infrastructure in the region. EOT-focused botnets, Hajime, Mozy, Murai, combined with offensive frameworks, tactical RMM, remote monitoring and management, Cobalt Strike, Sliver represent the dominant malware families. Source: The Hacker News. Azure Backup for AKS privilege escalation flaw. Microsoft silently fixed a privilege escalation flaw in Azure Backup for AKS that allowed a user with only backup contributor Azure role, 0 Kubernetes permissions, to gain cluster admin on any AKS cluster. The vulnerability carries CVSS score of 9, but does not have a CVE or Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures ID. Microsoft initially rejected the vulnerability report as AI-generated content, but appears to have patched the issue since March 2026, enforcing additional validation checks that did not exist previously. The flaw allowed non-Kubernetes users to escalate to full cluster control through Azure Backup management pathways. Action: verify Azure Backup for AKS configurations and review backup contributor role assignments. Audit AKS cluster admin access logs for unauthorized escalations. Apply latest Azure Backup for AKS updates. Source: The Hacker News. Romanian cybercrime operator sentenced to 56 months. A 46-year-old Romanian national, Catalin Dragomir, was sentenced to 56 months in prison for breaking into an Oregon state government office network in 2021 and other U.S. cyber attacks. Dragomir pleaded guilty to aggravated identity theft and obtaining information from a protected computer. He was arrested in Romania in November 2024 and extradited to the U.S. in January 2025. Dragomir sold access to the compromised Oregon government computer after providing prospective buyers with samples of personal identifying information. He also sold access to numerous other victim networks across the United States, causing losses of at least $250,000. Source: The Hacker News. Next section, General Security News. IBM and Red Hat commit $5 billion to Project Lightwell. For open source supply chain security, IBM and Red Hat announced Project Lightwell, a joint initiative backed by $5 billion and over 20,000 engineers to systematically secure open source software across enterprise supply chains. The project establishes an enterprise clearinghouse, leveraging AI to identify, triage, prioritize, and validate vulnerabilities and fixes across open source codebases. Engineers will focus on upstream maintenance with open source community leaders, high-volume AI-assisted vulnerability reviews, and secure patch development. Validated patches and lifecycle management features will be delivered through commercial software subscriptions for platforms including Linux, Java, Kubernetes, Kafka, Ansible, Terraform, Flink, and Cassandra. IBM currently uses over 62,000 open source packages across its enterprise footprint. Initial participants include Bank of America, BNY, Citi, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, MasterCard, Morgan Stanley, Royal Bank of Canada, State Street, Visa, and Wells Fargo. Source: Security Week. Next section, Patch Priority. GOG's self-hosted Git service, all versions, critical unauthenticated RCE 0-day, no patch available. Disable public registration and restrict internet exposure immediately. Daemon Tools, CVE 2026-8398, Supply Chain Compromise, CIS AKEV due May 30. Uninstall or verify binaries not compromised. Windows 0 days, CVE 2026-33825, Active Exploitation, CIS AKEV deadlines May 6 and June 3. Apply Microsoft patches immediately, and 2 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. 40 Client EMS, CVE 2026-35616, Critical RCE CVSS 9.1, Active Exploitation for Infostealer deployment. Patch immediately if not done in April. Next console VS Code extension, CVE 2026-48027, version 18.95.0 malicious, CIS a KEV due June 10. Remove extension and rotate all CI/CD credentials. Next section, vulnerability disclosures. MacGregor Voyage Data Recorder, VDR, G4E5 vulnerabilities in MacGregor Voyage Data Recorder, VDR, G4E versions before V5. 250 could allow attackers to gain administrator access. CVE 2026-42941, default username and password with no enforced password change. Authenticated users can download device backup, including account data and password hashes. Passwords stored with weak hashing, susceptible to brute force. Default accounts with hard-coded credentials. Administrator account can directly edit authentication files, including root password. Affects maritime transportation systems worldwide, and 4 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: update MacGregor VDR G4E firmware to V5. 250 at earliest service attendance rather than waiting for annual performance test. Contact vendor for support. Source: CISICS, Industrial Control Systems, Advisor. KMW CCTV security cameras, CVE 2026-5386. KMW CCTV camera models, KMIP 521 and KMIP 421, are vulnerable to unauthenticated password reset, allowing attackers to remotely reset administrator password to a known value without authentication, granting full access to camera feeds and settings. Action: apply firmware update available at Connect surveillance equipment on separate network, restrict internet access, check for updates regularly. KMIP 421 will lose cloud authorization after update and require customer support to reauthorize P2P. Source: CISA IX Advisory. Perl Archive, TAR vulnerabilities CVE 2026-42496. Archive, TAR versions before 3.8 for Perl extract symlinks with attacker-controlled targets outside extraction directory. CVE 2026-9538. Archive, TAR versions before 3.10 allows memory exhaustion via attacker-controlled entry size field in TAR header. Both have low EPSS scores, 12th percentile, indicating low current exploitation likelihood. Action: update Perl Archive, TAR to version 3.10 or later. Review extraction operations for untrusted TAR archives. Sources: MSRC. Multiple Linux kernel CVS Microsoft Security Update Guide, published 22 Linux kernel vulnerabilities. CVE 2026-46107 through, covering SMB, small and medium business, client bugs, network stack issues, memory safety flaws, and driver problems. All have EPSS scores in the 4th-12th percentile range, indicating low current exploitation activity. Specific issues include SMB client out-of-bounds read, DACL validation, Vertio Bluetooth header validation, and various use after free conditions, and 4 additional CVEs. See show notes for the full list. Action: apply latest Linux kernel updates through normal distribution channels. These are general kernel maintenance fixes with low immediate threat but should be patched during regular update cycles. Sources: multiple MSRC advisories. bzip2 off by 1 vulnerability, CVE 2026-42250, off by 1 error leading to out-of-bounds write in bzip2 compression library. No EPSS score or KEV listing, suggesting limited current exploitation context. Action: update bzip2 to latest version. Review applications using bzip2 for potential impact. Source: MSRC. Next section, trends and context. Supply chain attacks dominate the threat landscape with daemon tools, NX console, and GitHub intrusions all demonstrating how adversaries compromise trusted software distribution mechanisms. The pattern of Trojanizing legitimate code signing certificates and update channels continues to be effective. Meanwhile, the public dispute between Microsoft and security researcher chaotic. Eclipse highlights the tension between coordinated disclosure and researcher frustration with vendor responsiveness, resulting in 3 actively exploited 0 days and a threatened July 14 release of additional exploits. Self-propagating capabilities of the Gentleman ransomware and the massive Middle East C2 infrastructure footprint suggest threat actors are investing in scalable, automated attack platforms that can rapidly compromise entire environments once initial access is achieved. That concludes today's cyber threat brief. From Carolina Clear Tech, stay patched, stay vigilant.